Hi there guys, Mrs. K here, another episode of your technologically inept foods teacher. I'm here to teach you today about the formula that I use to make a crisp topping for any fruit crisp or cobbler that you're going to want to make. So spring and summer are coming, and in my house people like the apple crisp, but you could combine strawberries, you could put rhubarb, you could do any type of fruit crisp. So I'm just going to give you a few tips and tricks and the formula I use to make the crisp topping for any crisp. Okay, so first of all, you have 4 ingredients. So you have equal parts, 1 part flour, 1 part oats, 1 part margarine, and 1 part brown sugar, okay? And then you can also add in a little bit of cinnamon if you want into that mixture if you like cinnamon. I love cinnamon, so I always just sprinkle to taste what I like into my crisp mixture. So this is what I have. So everything is in here. So I'm making a big crisp. I'm making what you call a 9 by 13 pan. And so I've made a huge crisp. So in here I have 2.5 cups. So if you see, so when I buy my margarine, I buy it in a box that looks like this. So this is just Imperial. And sometimes when I do this for baking, number one, margarine's a little bit cheaper right now. And it comes in these nice little squares, which are already a 1/2 cup. So I have used 2.5 cups because I'm doing a big pan of margarine. So I'm using all 5 of these bricks. I have 2.5 cups of brown sugar, 2.5 cups of oats, 2.5 cups of flour. Now you can adjust that amount depending on how big your crisp is. The recipe that you're gonna find below attached to this assignment is for about an 8 by 8, which is a square cake pan of crisp. So you can double it, and I've recommended 1 cup to 1 cup to 1 cup to 1 cup. I'm making about double that amount, and my family likes more crisp, as everybody does, because it's the most delicious part. So that's what I have here. Now I'm gonna put all the butter in here. Now you can combine everything together. Personally, I like to wash my hands and use clean hands just to combine it together to really get in there. It takes a really long time with a pastry blender. So I'm gonna put the butter in here. I'm gonna combine it just here in a second, and I'm gonna explain a couple of other tips and tricks that you guys can use whenever you make a fruit crisp of any kind at home, right? So you could do apple cobbler, peach cobbler, you could do strawberry rhubarb. There's a lot of things. So in this bowl, you're gonna see I have used, I don't know, I can't remember, but about 16 Granny Smith apples, okay? So there is about 16 Granny Smith apples in here. Now, if you're adding other fruits, now Granny Smith apple is a low moisture apple, which means upon cooking, it's gonna have less liquid. So anytime you do an apple pie or something, or an apple cobbler, I like to use a Macintosh apple, a Spartan apple, or a Granny Smith, because they have a little bit less moisture content. And when they cook, they produce a little bit less water in the bottom of the pan for the soggy factor. If you're adding other fruits, or you're using any kind of frozen fruit, whether it be blueberries, strawberries, anything, those are very high moisture fruits. And because of that, you're gonna notice that once your crisp is baked, that there's a layer of liquid on the bottom. Now, to mitigate this, if you don't want it to be so watery and you'd rather make it kind of into a fruit syrup, what I sometimes will do for things like apple pie, some different fruit cobblers, is I use a cornstarch ratio. So I think here I've got about 3 tablespoons of cornstarch to about 80 mils of sugar, and I added some cinnamon into this mixture as well. And what that's gonna do, so if you remember in our thickening agents, when we learned about this either in your milk products unit or your soups and sauces unit, is that there's 3 ways to separate starch. You can either separate starch with hot fat, as we do with a white sauce, with cold water, as we would make for a slurry, for making gravies and things, or with sugar, as we would do for cream pies. So we're gonna use, I've separated cornstarch using sugar, and I've added a little bit of cinnamon into it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to just sprinkle this mixture onto my apples, okay? I'm gonna add a little bit more cinnamon on here as well. And then what I do is I take my clean hand and I kind of just toss my apples together with the mixture. And then basically in the baking process, as the liquids come out, they come in contact with the starches from the cornstarch, and basically the starches will gelatinize, creating more of a sauce than an actual watery liquid sitting at the bottom of your fruit crisp. So for apples, you don't have to do it, but if you're definitely adding rhubarb, strawberries, any other berries, peaches, more watery fruits, definitely want to add it. So I've got my mixture here, and I'm just going to pour my mixture into my pan. All right, so you're gonna notice, you're like, wow, Miss K, that is a lot of apples. It is. Now keep in mind, anytime you're baking with fruits, so keep your kitchen clean, get rid of your dirty dishes. Anytime you're baking with fruit's gonna shrink up about an inch. So although my pan is quite high right now, when fruits cook, the water comes out, some evaporates, some will turn to syrup, and it's gonna drop down about an inch. So you always wanna make sure that your pan is over full with apples, because you want to take into account the shrinking factor. The higher moisture a fruit has, the more it's going to shrink when it bakes. So apple pies, it needs to be very full. Apple crisp, the pan needs to be very full. Okay, so now I've got my apples into the pan here. Just rinsed my hands off, and now I'm going to mix my crumble mixture. And it can be a little bit of a messy process. You're kind of squishing butter in there. You don't want to have any rings or anything on for this. And you want to kind of leave your margarine out a little bit to get it to room temperature before you do this, so it's a little easier to work with. Okay. All right. And then once it's all mixed together, what you're going to do is you're going to crumble this and place it nice and even on top of your pan. You're going to bake at 350 for 45 minutes to 1 hour, or until a fork can easily pierce through the center of the crisp. If you have to put any effort behind that fork at all, it needs to just bake a bit longer. Now, sometimes if you're a little worried that liquids are going to come over, it's always a good idea to put your baking dish on top of a cookie sheet to ensure that none of the juices are going to drop over. Now, if you're finding that your crisp is browning too much on top before the apples are actually cooked, if you notice that, what you can do is take a piece of aluminum foil and you can put it on top of the crisp to prevent the top of the crust from over baking, but to allow the apples to continue to cook. Okay, so I'm gonna continue this, and then I'm gonna show you when so you can see it's coming together kind of like a dough. You need to kind of work the butter together, and then you can crumble it into pieces kind of like this on top. You want to make sure that all of the dry gets in, and sometimes you're going to be like, but it's not working, it's not going to work. It will work, it will all go in. You just need to continue to work with it until everything is combined together and it's kind of a crumbly, it'll kind of look like a oatmeal cookie batter recipe. All right. Now, I have included the recipe with all of the things that I'm doing here in this video. I've typed it up for you guys, as well as the cornstarch mixture. And then, of course, you need to increase the ratios of everything if you're increasing the recipe size. Okay, so I'll get back to you guys and when this is done, and I'll show you how to check for doneness and what your crisp should look like at the end. Take care, guys. See you in a minute. Okay, here again. I'm here to show you my finished product of my apple crisp. Now, I did end up having to use a little bit of foil on top because my apple crisp, as you know, had a lot of apples. But you can see here from the side that it's shrunk down quite a bit, like I said that it would. And then I did use this jelly roll pan to put it on, and you can see there's a little dripping over, and you don't want that on the bottom of your oven, otherwise it'll cause smoke and you don't want to clean up that mess. So always use a little pan. Probably 40 minutes into the cooking process, I had to put on, just like gently drape on a piece of foil like this. My crisp was huge, so it took me roughly an hour and a half to cook it. And then at the 40-minute mark, I put a piece of foil over top of it, and I reduced the temperature to 300 to just slowly cook the apples because I had a very thick layer. Then, as you can see, there's a few holes poked here. I just want to show you. So when I put my fork in here, you just gently go in. Okay, it goes in without a lot of pressing, and then that's you have a beautiful apple crisp, and then that's all. So then you can scoop it out. I might let it sit for a little bit here. It's super, super hot. I might give it about half an hour to rest before you actually eat it, or even 20 minutes would be fine. And then serve it with some vanilla ice cream or unwhipped heavy cream, and enjoy it as a nice dessert. All right, guys, that's it. Hope you enjoy.